What's up, and welcome back to Interpreting the Scares! That's right, we're back at it on a month-long journey throughout the nightmares. Now remember, I'm taking a look at 31 foreign horror films in chronological order. Today we're starting another somewhat well-known franchise with REC. So just like with The Ring and the Ju-On series, I have definitely seen the American remake of REC called Quarantine, but that wasn't as successful, so it never received its own franchise. It was just a one-and-done type of thing, while REC has made a few films over the years, all of which I'll be getting around to before Halloween, starting with this film, which came out in 2007, it's REC. REC is a Spanish found footage horror film about a news reporter recording a fluff piece on the life and times of what firemen go through on a day-by-day basis when she follows them to an apartment complex to rescue an older lady. But when she shows up there, the apartment is quarantined off by the government because something bad has released inside, causing those that live inside to go a little bit nutso and violent, turning into, wouldn't you know it, a bunch of bloodthirsty zombies. So like I said, I've seen the American remake, Quarantine, a few years ago, and from what I can recall, the two movies are remarkably similar, like shot-for-shot remake similar. But if I had to pick a better film out of the two, I'd probably choose this one, maybe because of recency bias, or maybe just the mere fact that the originals, 9 times out of 10, are better. There was a process, though, behind the scenes that I admire in making sure that the atmosphere was as tense as it was in this movie, which was that the actors weren't told which one of them would make it in the scene and which would die until it was time to shoot that death scene, which, I mean, that's pretty smart. That way, the cast is always on the edge of their toes, like, is it time? Is this it? Is this where I'm gonna die? I think that was pretty cool. And the main actress in this movie really was a TV presenter, like who she was portraying in the film. So there's always a little bit of authenticity to what you're watching in this movie versus the American film, which I feel like was very super aware that it was a zombie film, so they really embellished on all of that, and it ends up feeling more like a produced thing because of it. This felt very authentic in terms of found footage, complete with some really shaky camera footage, weird edits, long takes that don't seem to add up to much at first. It's definitely solid, and the performances from everybody definitely feel real. They don't feel like actors, but rather it feels like they have legitimate fear, like this is the end of my life and I don't know what to do fear. And in terms of zombie films in general, it's a story that both seems original and unoriginal at the same time. I want to say that the parts of it that feel unoriginal are simply the fact that I subliminally remember watching these things happen in quarantine. But I've always loved slightly grounded films like this when it comes down to zombie outbreaks, as it makes more sense as a contagion that the government has absolutely no idea about what's going on. And it's just as confusing, if not more, to everybody witnessing firsthand. There's a touch of supernatural to this film as well, especially in the third act, which I'm sure they'll probably talk more about in sequels when I get around to them. But as it was, this is a great movie and one of the best in terms of modern zombie outbreak films as a whole. In terms of things like visuals, there's some really great subtle uses of practical effects that were pretty strong when it came down to makeup and gore. The apartment complex itself was like a secondary character in the film that you really got acquainted with over time, especially given the fact that no sets were created for the film. It really was a real apartment complex. And because of that, since the film's release, it has become a major tourist attraction, which I always love learning things like that. I don't really have that much to complain about here other than the fact that because it's a foreign film, I had to pay more attention to the subtitles, which haven't really been a huge issue through any of this, but the Spanish language is so complex, so there's a lot of syllables for every word. At the end of the day, in comparison to some of the other films I've watched this month, this one seems to have more of an unfortunate balance of being able to see the action while trying to understand what they're screaming about at the same time. Overall, though, I think that this was a fantastic film, but I'll admit, I'm more interested in seeing where they take the story of the series from here on out, since this was a story I mostly remember seeing already in Quarantine, so it wasn't as fresh of an experience as some of the other movies I've seen this year's Interpreting the Scares event. Be that as it may, I scored REC a B+ letter grade, final overall score of 81%, 81 out of 100 possible stars. In general, this is a great zombie film, great found footage film, and great foreign horror movie in general that I fully understand where the franchise came out of. But there's some room for improvement, especially with character development. The performances were there 100%. There really wasn't anything in terms of depth for the characters, which in general would have helped an audience care that much more when those individuals end up dying. but that's really just my only complaint. Guys, have you seen Wreck? If you have, I'd love to hear your thoughts about the film in the comment section down below, and how you compare it to Quarantine if you've seen that. As for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe button, and bell to be notified when I come out with my next installment for the Interpreting the Scares event. And until then, peace out.